welcome to another episode of Daddy Confessions, where we have honest conversations about fatherhood, family, and everything in between. Today, we're talking about something that a lot of us struggle with, balancing career ambitions with being present for our family. Can you really have it all? And if not, how do you make peace with choosing family over professional success? I have to tell you, this is something that is happened to me very recently, and society will tell us that success is about climbing the corporate ladder, making more money, and gaining recognition, and to a certain extent, it is. That's the way we talk about it, and everything from rap music to television, everything, especially for fathers. This is a big deal. We feel the responsibility to provide for our families, and sometimes at the cost of being present. The myth that if I just work harder now, I can have more time later, but honestly, later may never come. And that's why it's really important for us to think about how we can take care of our family now, how we can be present for our family now, how we can fulfill all the things that we want to do and be a part of in our family. Because one day, the kids are going to grow up. One day, you'll just be looking at your wife or your spouse in the face, and you'll be trying to figure out where the time went. So I had a situation that happened to me recently. I had the opportunity to take a job, and that job would have moved my whole family away to another state, away from our extended family, my mother, my sister, my wife's sister, our nieces, and I had to make a decision. It was not an easy decision, but it was one that I needed to make for my family and for myself. I spent a lot of time thinking about everything that came along with it. The money, the opportunity, the money. And what I realized was that my family has been in flux a lot over the past couple of years. We've been trying to figure things out, trying to understand, what direction we're moving in. My wife was in school for a while. She was working and doing school. The boys are growing up. My oldest is kind of hitting that early adolescence piece where he is, or preteen, I guess I should say, where he's learning a little bit more about himself and trying to figure out himself and around with the people around him. And that was a really, really big deal for us, trying to figure all of that out. And it's been tough. It hasn't been an easy couple of years. It's not new, but I've talked about it here on this podcast a lot. The fact that I go to therapy, the fact that my family does counseling, and it felt like the opportunities were there for us to continue with those in a very meaningful way. And if I took the position, if I moved away, if I moved everybody away, then we would really be kind of starting over, which got me to thinking. Like, it just made it very hard for me to sit back and be okay with like taking this position, moving away, moving my whole family to a whole nother state. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about that. Now, I'm not saying that, a move won't ever come, but I felt like right now it was a time where I needed to think about really being still. First time in a long time that we've been really stable. Like, financially we've been fine for years in terms of, we've been living in the same house for a long time, but we've always had lots of different things happening here, always. And for the first time, it felt like we were really hitting our stride as a family. And I'm not gonna say that it was easy to say no to the job. And it felt like this particular position, though, would have asked a lot of me. It would have put me in direct contact with other kids who needed me a lot of my time. And it would have meant that I was given less time to my wife and my kids. And that felt really weird to me to put myself at this point in my life in a situation where I would be essentially neglecting my family in order to give time and effort to somebody else's. And that's weird to say because I work in schools, right? So I do a lot of that every day. My job is to take care of other people's kids, to work with adults who need assistance, and in the form of the teachers, to really make sure that people have what they need in the school environment. And this program was one that was not in the school. It was outside of the school. And these kids were coming to us because they needed additional support. They would have needed additional support above and beyond their school day. So we're talking about evenings and weekends. And I couldn't put it together in my brain to be okay with giving up time on my evenings and weekends when that's time that I should be giving to my family. Work 5 days a week. Normally, the idea is that you work 40 hours a week, but I already knew, I could tell, even without it being verbally said, that this was more than a 40-hour-a-week job. It might have been more than a 50-hour-a-week job. And so I would be taking valuable time from my family and giving it to my job. And, I always think about what that means to give that kind of time to something that is not your family. Honestly, we all know that our jobs, we're replaceable unless we start the business ourselves, unless it's our own brainchild that we got out there. Any job you walk into, you are replaceable 100% of the time. And so I had to think about that. Like, I'm replaceable. If I walk out of that job the next day, they're going to find somebody else to take my position. But what does that mean for me and my family? What did I lose in the meantime? What did I change about the trajectory of my life and my family? What did I change in terms of all the things that I wanted to see my boys do? What did I miss, right? What moments did I not take to spend time with my wife because I was doing this job where I was replaceable? I had to spend some time really thinking about my wife and all of that she has given both to me and now to our boys in terms of her sacrifices. When I met my wife, she was living in North Carolina. She was doing her thing, taking care of her business. And I asked her to marry me. And then I asked her to move to New Hampshire. Not an easy move for anybody. And she made the move. We packed it up. We drove the cars up. We did the whole thing. And she never gave me any, pushback on it at all. And then when I decided that things were not going in the right direction in New Hampshire, after a year and a half of her being there, we packed up our things again and we left and we moved back to Maryland. Well, I moved back to Maryland. We moved to Maryland. And, that was, again, she never blinked twice about it, didn't give me a hard time about it. And she made that transition really easy. And, here I am for the third time asking her to possibly move from my job. And I had to stop and really, really think about that. My wife is amazing. She's been doing an amazing job with the boys and, trying to get them connected in. And she's figured out, now that school's done for her ways to connect into the community herself and be really, independent in terms of like finding things that are of interest to her, whether it be, being a part of the alumni chapter of her college or being on different boards for the Boys and Girls Club that the boys are a part of or whatever that has been. She's been an amazing partner, an amazing parent, and she's kind of done it all without really batting an eyelash, without ever saying to me that she was tired of it or done with it. And, I think that if it were a situation where we were moving a reasonable distance from where we are now, if we were moving to a place that felt like it wasn't a huge shift in environment for us where, we couldn't be close to our family, where we couldn't, get to them quickly, where we couldn't have access to some of the resources and the exciting opportunities that we built here where we are now, then I think it would have been a much easier transition. And so, I had to stop and think about that, and really be intentional about thinking about what motivated me the most. And I spoke to a lot of people about it. Spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people leading up to the final decision because I needed to hear from different people as to how they would see this as an outsider, how they would think about this possible transition and the things that they have dealt with in their job transitions. I have to say the funniest thing about this, and funny for me, probably not so funny for the people who offer me the job, is this is literally the first time I've ever turned down a position. But this is also the first time that I've had so much to lose if I didn't. The last time, I turned down a position, or the last time I switched jobs, my boys were young. We didn't have to move. It was a great opportunity for a transition for me at a time where I needed a transition. And this transition, although it will be great, it's not necessarily one that I think fully was given a lot of thought for me as to why I wanted it so much now, until it got to the place of it being offered to me. And the money didn't hurt. It would have been a significant bump. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine who told me that all money ain't good money. Now, he's the executive director of a program himself, and this was the executive director position, and his response was in the vein of fundraising. But what stuck with me was that, when he mentioned that to me, I immediately thought about, well, there could be a component of that could also fall in line with how you are finding work, right? Because if something goes wrong, if something is up in the air, if something is exciting, and they really want you to take it on, right? No matter how many hours it's going to cost you in your life and with your family, this money they can throw money at it in order to, in their mind, make it better. And if you're okay with that, if that's your motivating factor, then that's the way to go, right? If money is what motivates you, then go for it. And Marvin, I don't think you knew that was the direction I was taking it when I heard you say, all money ain't good money. But I had to frame it that way when I talked to my pastor, when I talked to Pastor James, when I talked to my friend Joe, and as I'm having these different conversations with people who have their own families, right? Who have made these transitions, who've gone through this process, who've applied to jobs, who've given up things for work, for elevation in work, for title, right? I had to really truly think about that. Was this good money? Or was it just more money? I had to think about it. The money would have just been kind of masking the situation, right? Like, I can give my family more if I have more money. But what do they get more of? They get more physical things. They get more trinkets. They get more electronics. They get more, maybe vacations if I can make the time, right? But what are they losing? What are we losing? And that is the process I had to go through. I had to figure out whether it was worth what we might be losing, what I might be losing. And to a place that felt so foreign at a time when things are so out of whack in the world, it made it even more difficult, because as my boys are learning who they are in relationship to their mother and father, as they're learning who they are in relationship to each other, as they're learning who they are in relationship to the world that they live in, it felt really weird to pick them up out of that and move them into a place, into a situation where they, again, starting over, where they, again, would be trying to understand themselves in front of and around these new people who have, in many cases, extremely different views than the tribe, the village that they formed where we currently are. And so, as I thought about what money would have done in terms of masking the situation, I had to figure out what was more important. And what was more important for me at this time, what my motivating factor is right now in my life, is my family. And so I went from masking the need with money to working on meeting the need of my family with time. So that's not easy. And that's a long story in a short amount of time about, trying to figure it out. And that's been kind of my journey on that, right? I know my kids don't care about my title. They don't care about promotion. And one day, when they're out of the house, when they're gone, when they're raising their own kids, they will look back and they will think about the time that we spent together, the attention I gave them, the things that we did as a family, the dinners, the lunches, the rides to different places, the vacations that we took. And maybe the vacations look different if we don't have a ton of money, but they're still going to be vacations together. The time that we spend at night, the laughs that we have, I had to realize that in this season of my life, I need to spend more time with my wife, not less time. So all that to say, I said it before. Also, ultimately, I turned down the job. I knew that once I did, I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it anymore. And you know, a lot of that has to do with the fact that I feel like I'm gaining so much just being on the other side of it now, right? Hasn't been a long time since I turned down the job, but I'm not sleeping any differently at night. I feel pretty good about it. No additional stress on my life. I feel like I went through all the steps that it takes to really understand why I was making that decision. And I made it. I prayed about it. I talked about it, um and I made a decision. And so, I mean, this probably won't be the last time that I ever talk about it. Sure to come up again. I'm sure there'll be some other situation. God forbid things change with my current job and I start to hate it and I start to think about, why I didn't take that job and move. And, but for now, everything is great. My job is great. My family is doing well. We're spending time together. We're going to continue to spend time together and enjoy each other's company. And, and I'm going to make moments for myself. I'm going to make moments for me and my wife. I'm going to make moments for me and my boys. And those are going to happen. And they're going to happen with no regrets, honestly. And that's the most important part, right? And I get to work on right now in this season of my life, like fulfilling the promise that I made to my wife when we got married. Right. I get to work on fulfilling the promise I made to my boys, whether they know it or not, when they were born, was that I was going to put them first. Right. Obviously it goes God first, but my family is right there. And that's a really important piece. I'm trying to work on leaving a legacy, I'm trying to work on creating an opportunity for my kids to look at and feel really confident in what they have grown up in terms of a family environment, and know that everything that we are doing, no matter how out of whack it may seem to somebody else's family, is a step for them in the right direction. I'm hoping that they are already feeling things that I didn't feel growing up, because I didn't grow up with my father, right? Like, their dad is here. Their dad loves them. Their dad wants to spend time with them, wants to teach them lessons, right? Wants to be a part of the things that they're involved in. It yells at their, wrestling games, basketball games, lacrosse games, whatever, soccer games. I'm there, right? And I am the best, worst kind of dad you can have at those events, because I don't mind embarrassing you in love and excitement. And I need to be there for that. And because I want to be able to share the stories on the back end. I want to be able to talk about the successes and the failures. And if I'm working, if I am putting all of my time and effort into somebody else's kids, then I'm not doing that for mine. I learned a long time ago about the importance of setting boundaries at work to protect my family time. But when that opportunity comes to earn more money or get a better title, sometimes we put those boundaries on the back burner. And I made a decision not to do that this time. Not to put it on the back burner, not to, let it fall by the wayside, not to think that money solves all problems. And that's where I stand on that. It's been good. I don't know if there is a right way to think about a decision like that. It just has to be the one that helps you sleep at night. It has to be the one where you can look yourself in the mirror and you understand that you were doing it because of what motivates you in the moment. And if your family, if you have a family, you have a wife and kids, and what you guys really need in that moment is money, take the job. You know what I'm saying? Have the conversation with your spouse and let them know that the time that you may be away from them is because things are so tight right now, because things are so out of whack. Take the job. But for me, right now in this season, the money wasn't it. That wasn't my motivation. We got a roof over our head. We got food in our belly. I ain't never missed a meal. And we're happy. And I want us to stay that way for now. I want us to stay that way forever, honestly. I know it's not always going to be that way, but whatever I can do to move us in that direction, that's what I want to do. So that was an important piece for me, is getting us to that place. is getting myself to that place. And, I like to have, believe it or not, I like to have people around too sometimes. I got friends in this area. I got, obviously got my family in this area. And, I wanted to make sure that I was able to see some things through for myself as well. So I didn't completely put myself on the back burner for this, but I did put my family first in making this decision. And we got to do that. We have to figure out our motivations. We have to figure out at the end of the day how we want this moment in time to be remembered. Because it's just that, it is just a moment in time. This will not be the last thing that you do. It won't be the last decision that you make. It won't be the last job that comes your way. And you have to decide where your family is in that moment, what season of life you're in, what you think you need, what you prayed about needing. And if those things are what is important in that moment, then go for it. And if it feels like it's too good to be true, if it feels like it's going to pull you in a direction that you're not ready to go, or that you don't need to go, or that you feel some kind of strain on your relationship already, or on yourself, right? If you're feeling mental strain already, the worst thing you can do is take on something else that you know to be more stressful, know to be more time consuming. And if your relationship is strained, be mindful of where that strain comes from. For a lot of people, it is money. For some people, it's time. For some people, it's understanding the person you're in a relationship with, because we all change a little bit. So trying to figure out how to manage that in a very meaningful way, to be able to put those things in line so that you can really be set up for success, right? So, if you think about it like the dominoes, right? Like you set the dominoes up nicely so that when the time comes, you can knock them down. But at the end of it, you reach your goal. And for me, right now, my goal is to continue to have my family be healthy and happy, to watch my boys grow up, become young men, for them to be able to say that their father was, I may not do all the things. They went snow tubing a couple of weeks ago. Nope, they went without me on that trip. But, but knowing that their father is there, their father's engaged, and that I'm going to be the person that they need me to be when the moment comes, and they can find me, and they don't have to worry about sharing me with a whole bunch of other people who are trying to pull at me from different directions. I'm not saying there's not going to be moments where I do have to put some additional time into my work, but in this season, right now, I think this season is the season for family for me. So I'm not going to belabor this topic anymore, but I'm going to ask the question, what are you thinking about what I just said? Like, what is that? How does that hit you? Have you ever had to make a tough career decision for your family? I love to hear from you. I love to have you drop a comment, on this video, or send me a message at thedaddyconfessions@gmail.com, or, just let me know. Hit me up on Instagram, and I want to hear from you, because I think that there is a lot to be talked about in this realm. And as men, women too, as parents, we have to balance a lot, and we need to be very, very careful what that balance looks like. And I'm working on that every day. I don't have all the answers to it at all, not even close. But I know that it's a necessity to try to put things in order, to try to figure out how we can help our children be the best version of themselves, while also continuing to work on being the best version of ourselves. And sometimes that means we have to be that example, and they need to know the sacrifices that you make for them. They need to understand that it's not just about being in a world where we talk about money being the most important thing. It's about being in a world where we understand that relationships and family are hugely important, and that we are building our village to support us in the good times and the bad times. And, when I talked to my aunt the other day, she mentioned to me that she was happy that I wasn't leaving. When I heard from my sister-in-law that she was happy we weren't leaving. When I hear the boys talk about, their excitement about being able to be close to their cousins, it makes you think, right? Why ain't nobody say nothing about me? Nobody said they was happy I was staying. No. What it made me think was, there's a lot that could have happened, a lot that will happen in the future related to my family and related to, my wife and how amazing she is and how, whether she says it with her words or not, I know she's extremely supportive of me and what I want to do. And I am extremely supportive of her and what she wants to do. And so however we can support each other is a really important piece, but being able to model that for our sons is even more important. They need to understand that the world we live in is one where everybody, lots of people, maybe not everybody, but lots of people are out for self. And they put themselves so far ahead of everybody else that it becomes this toxic environment. We see it now. So whatever we can do to help that not be the case, where we can create an environment where where our kids can see that they don't have to put themselves above anybody else, where they can work cooperatively, where they can, help other people be successful, where they can help other people up. That's a really important piece. And in this case, I say all that to say that, my family is what I'm holding up my family. I'm helping them move forward. They're helping me move forward. And it starts at home. So I'm going to stay at home. I'm going to stay here with my family. I'm not making them move to another state. I'm not making a huge change for them at a time when they have lots of learning to do about themselves and about the people around them right now. So we're going to work through it here. We are excited to be staying. I'm excited. And, it's so important. So important to put family first, I think. And professional success will come. The opportunities will still be there. I'll continue to grow in the work that I'm doing. And one day, hey, the job will be right. The place will be right. The people will be right. And my kids will be ready. My wife will be ready. And we'll make that move. But until then, this has been another episode of Daddy Confessions. Thank you for listening and watching and being a part of the Daddy Confessions family. Let me know what you want to hear talked about on the episode of the podcast. Any topics or ideas, drop them right down there in the comments. Or, again, hit me up on Instagram or on Facebook or at my email at thedaddyconfessions@gmail.com. Peace.